Welcome to Miracles in the Madness, where faith meets the chaos. I'm your host, Ashton, and together we'll explore stories, biblical truth, and encouragement for women living in the beautiful, messy life God has called them to. Each week, we'll dive into real-life testimonies, practical encouragement, and biblical insights to help you walk faithfully through the everyday madness. Ready to get started? Let's go. So as many of you know, I think I told this story on here before, I became a parent about 1 month before our little world around where I live shut down because of the COVID-19 virus. At that time, I cannot imagine a worse scenario for beginning my parenting journey, because I was personally sitting in this place of longing for more community and more connection and more advice from other Christian mamas who have gone through what I was experiencing. I found a deeper longing for the Lord and interest in gaining a deeper relationship with Him. I had no idea how much community really would matter in my faith journey. Now that we have come on the other side of COVID and I finally have found this very large, well-rounded group of supportive and encouraging women around me, I want to share them with you. And I want to encourage you to find the same community. But I know some of us aren't in a position where we can just go out and meet people. I want to invite you to participate in this community of faith-based strong women in Christ who are ready and able to encourage you and support you and pray for you. And you can find them on Facebook at the Miracles in the Madness community. I'm going to link it below. I want to invite you to participate, because if there's one thing that I think really came out of COVID that we all learned, is that while virtual friendships and working relationships and things like that they're not always perfect. We learned how to communicate and grow friendships and relationships through online forums and opportunities, so that we could then take what we were learning in those groups and maybe in those workplaces and bring it out into the world. And so that's what I want to do in this community. But more than anything, I want the mamas who join this group to feel like at any moment, if they're struggling with anything, if they need prayer, if they want to ask for advice, or even ask questions about the Bible studying that they're doing, I want you to know you can come and participate. So I hope you'll join us, and just reach out to me if you have any questions. The link is below in the show notes. Welcome back to Miracles in the Madness. I'm Ashton, your host, and today I want to talk a little bit about, I think, peace. I'll admit, I'm coming into this episode not fully sure what God is trying to put out through me here, but I'm just trying to remain patient and understand as I go. But I say peace because recently I was reading through the Psalms, and as I was reading in the Psalms, a word started to pop out to me that I guess I kind of ignored before. So one thing you'll notice is if you're listening to the Psalms through like the audio versions, like in the Bible app, occasionally you'll hear it read, depending on the Psalm, of course. But like I'm looking at Psalm 62. And after verse 4, off to the right, it says Selah, if that's how it's pronounced, Selah. And it's in italics. And that word is debated, from what I can do with my research. It's debated the true meaning, but generally it's thought to mean rest, peace, or reflection. And what I think is so interesting is that as I've read through the Psalms, it's so easy to ignore it, especially when you're looking at it, right? So because it's not still within the stanzas of the poetry or the song or just the psalm, right? Like it's not in line on the left aligned words. It's also in italics off to the right. And my mind goes to, is it, on Psalm 62, it says, for the choir director, according to Jeduthun, a psalm of David. And that's all in italics. So it makes me wonder, is Selah supposed to be like the musical rest? Is it supposed to be like that moment of silence? Because sometimes he's saying it after he kind of says some profound things. So in 62, he said he's praising God. Like, he's acknowledging that God is his salvation, his stronghold, his rock, and that he will never be shaken, because that's where he rests in God. And then as you kind of continue down, it's almost like he starts to, like, for me, when I read it, it feels like how my brain goes to a spiral of thinking thoughts, right? So if I'm praying, sometimes I'm thinking to myself, or I'm thinking to God as I'm praying, I'm thinking, God, thank you for today. Thank you for this food. Thank you for taking care of us. And then I start to spiral thinking about all the things that he's taking care of because they're going wrong, or whatever. This is maybe a bad example, but the reason I say it is because when my mind starts to spiral, what I really need to do is stop and take a deep breath. I need to stop and just quiet my brain and then go back to the true thoughts. And I sometimes, when I'm reading through the Psalms, especially when there's Psalms of David and the word Selah is included, it makes me think that maybe he started to pray and then his mind kind of, was spiraling about his situation or about the things going on in his life. And then he literally wrote down, take a deep breath. And then he goes back to, alone I rest in you, God. My soul rests in you, and my hope comes from you. And he kind of goes on about his hope in God. And then Selah. So taking another breath. Like, sometimes it feels like he's building and building and then take a break. And then take a break. And how often in our lives do we have to consciously think about that break? For me personally, when we're struggling with our finances, or specifically I think about when I'm having a rough day as it is, and then maybe I get home and my kids are just they're just being kids, that maybe they just want to talk to me. Maybe they are also having a rough day, and so they're trying to get my attention, whatever it may be. It's just I'm already overstimulated when I walk in the door, and then they come and push that button a little bit more, right? Something, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before, something I have had to work on is my own personal emotional regulation when it comes to my kids. It's not their fault that I'm already overstimulated when I come into my house. It's not their fault that they're kids and they don't understand, hey, maybe we shouldn't talk over each other, or maybe we can't all talk to mom at the same time and her be able to respond to us at the same time. We're learning those things. But if they don't learn it through my lens of patience, if I can't be patient while they try to learn this, I could end up teaching them something I don't want to teach them about our relationship. Let me try to make that more clear. When I say I might be teaching them something about our relationship that I don't want to be teaching them, I mean, with children especially, but any of our human brains, my understanding is if something feels traumatic, and we don't get to decide what's traumatic for each other, that we don't get to decide what's traumatic for our children, just like we didn't get to decide what was going to traumatize us. If something comes across and puts their bodies in a state of fight or flight, they will learn the very first time that it happens that that's what's going to happen. So my example in this situation is, if I walk in the door, I'm overstimulated, and my kids are coming at me just trying to tell me about their day, and I pop off and scream at them and say, everybody be quiet, I can't listen to you. And then I go off and on a tangent about how bad my day was, and like just what I guess was sometimes maybe my internal what I want to do, because I'm just so past the point of like feeling in control of my body because I'm so overstimulated. If I do that, my children might start to believe that, well, if mom's not okay, she doesn't care about me, or mom doesn't want to hear about my day, or I can't talk to mom about XYZ. Like any number of things could come from that interaction that I don't mean to teach them. Because of course I want to be there for my children. Of course I want to be the place that they go after every day where they want to talk about their day. And of course I care about their days. Like I love my children. So of course I want the best for them, and I want to hear about it. But sometimes I get to that place of being so overwhelmed that like I mentally don't feel like I can. And so the challenge of being an adult in this situation is like I'm having to learn a lot about emotional regulation on my own. And I think this is probably part of most people's experience. Maybe some parents did a really good job at teaching emotional regulation back in the day when I was younger, or like the other millennial kids around my age. But I don't really know that that was the common parenting style when I was younger. I know for me specifically, like my parents grew up in tough type farming households. Like there really wasn't time when they were growing up for being emotional. We had animals and livestock to take care of. We have a farm to take care of. We've got chores to do in the house. There's 8 or 9 kids running around. There's probably not a lot of time to gently teach your children how to regulate their emotions. And so that gets passed down. And this is me not saying any fault to my parents. And it's not me saying that this is the right way to parent either. But what I'm learning is when I am able to take a position of patience with my children, and I'm able to take that deep breath and like mentally prepare myself for all that they want to tell me and all that they want to express and every piece of that, not only do I receive it better, but they feel like I'm really listening and I really care, because I do care and I am really listening. But if all I can think about is my overwhelm from the day, I'm not going to be able to process it and have that conversation, because I'm just going to be trying to get it over with. And I don't like that feeling as a parent. I'm sure you don't either. So what I'm saying is, maybe we should take a note from David. Maybe we need to build in some intentional Selah in our lives. So for me, I'm thinking maybe if I have had a long day, or maybe just like when I get in my car at work, maybe I can just, before I even leave the parking lot, just take some very deep, intentional breaths before I enter into daycare pickup. What if I did that? What if in the morning I got up 5 minutes earlier than normal, and instead of rushing to get dressed, rushing to get teeth brushed, and like get ready for work and breakfast ready, like instead of jumping straight into the routine, what if that 5 minutes extra, which shouldn't make any difference on my sleep, in that 5 minutes, I took some deep cleansing breaths. Maybe I sat down with God's word. Maybe I just read one psalm. Okay, most of the time you can read through a psalm in 5 minutes. You might be able to read 2. What if I just took some intentional time to reflect, rest, find peace, pause? What if I made intentional time for that? That's really all I had today. I hope that maybe this hits you in a way that you can find areas in your life, because I don't think 5 minutes is that big of an ask. Because if you can't find 5 minutes, you may need to reflect on like your screen time usage or your priorities in your day. But even if it's just 5 minutes, right at the top of your day, or right before you enter into child pickup, you just take 5 minutes to think about, process, reflect on your day, to get yourself in a mindset that's ready to receive your children's excitement about their day. Because the last thing that I want to do is, again, share with them the wrong message about my intentions because my attitude is bad or my body is overstimulated. That's not fair. I want them to know that I'm a trustworthy and safe place. So if I can't sit after a busy day and hear them talk to me about the kid who scraped his knee at school, how am I going to be the safe place that they go to when someone approaches them at school about drugs when they get older? Or how am I going to be the safe place that they go to when they're in a relationship that's not good for them and they don't know what to do about it? I think about how our lives kind of evolve into these, our problems when we're kids usually aren't the same or even as massive as they might feel as we get older and older and older. At least I was privileged to have that in my childhood. After I said that out loud, it occurred to me there are a lot of children who don't have that privilege, that their lives actually get a whole lot easier when they're in charge of them. Anyway, I just think about, man, if I can't be there for them now when their biggest problem is that their sister won't share the toy they want, what makes me think that I'm going to get to be the person that they feel comfortable going to talk about bigger problems. I don't want my kids running to try to hide from me the things they're going to do or the things that they are doing. I mean, I want to be seen and I want them to know I'm a trustworthy resource. So for me, I think that looks like showing them now that they are important enough for me to give them my attention even when I have very little left to give. And I think it also means that I can be responsible enough for myself to know that if I need 5 minutes before I go in my house, or if I need 5 minutes before I start daycare pickups, I need to build in that 5 minutes and set timers on my phone. Because I think the relationship with my children is way more important than my comfort zone or the difficulty in growing emotionally. So I hope that you'll take some time to read through the Psalms a little bit more this week, because I think there's something in there for everybody. So if you're having a great week, there's plenty of Psalms of praise. If you're having a tough time right now, you'll probably find plenty in there that at least makes you feel seen and heard. And if you're somewhere in between, you'll find plenty that teach you how to praise even when you're not sure what you need to be doing. At the end of the day, if you take nothing else from this shorter podcast, I hope that it's that Selah is not a flyover word in your Bible. I think Selah is meant to be a moment of silence to process, to maybe grieve, to take a cleansing breath. It's a moment to reflect. It's a moment to rest. Maybe you should find some time for yourself to Selah. In the meantime, don't forget to look for the miracles in the men. Thank you for listening to Miracles in the Madness. I hope today's episode encouraged you and reminded you that even in the chaos, God is present and faithful. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with a friend who might need a little encouragement today. This helps more listeners like you find this podcast. You can connect with me and find devotionals, resources, and faith-filled tools to support your walk with God at ashtonkiever.com. You can also follow along on social media or join the community where we continue these conversations and walk this journey together. Remember, God is still writing your story. He's working in your everyday moments, and you are never alone in the beautiful chaos of motherhood.